Blood on a bald skull. Eyes that do not blink. This is the white-backed vulture. An entire continent calls her a bad omen, a carrier of death. Everything you just felt about her is a lie. Her stomach acid kills anthrax, rabies, and botulism on contact. When she vanished from one country, 100,000 people started dying every year. Every culture on this land has told children the same story about her. Bad omen, carrier of death. You do not want her circling above your home. Kenya, Nigeria, a dozen traditions. She has never been given the benefit of the doubt. Look at her. It is not hard to see why. A bald head, the color of old bruises. A hooked beak built for tearing. She does not sing. She does not soar like the eagles people admire. She waits. She circles. She descends only onto what is already dead. There is an older accusation, one that predates any court. They say she smells death before it happens. Her shadow is not coincidence. It is prophecy, a warning that something below is already lost, and she already knows it. Stories like this survive for a reason. Frightening feels true. Today, on the Serengeti Mara, that reputation faces the scene that built it. The Mara River, mid-migration, does not choose who lives. Today, more animals die crossing this water than every predator on the plain will kill all season. By mid-morning, the far bank is a field of the drowned. Dozens of wildebeest, a handful of zebra. Before the bodies stop moving, the sky above them is already filling another charge, one that has nothing to do with omens. Filthy, diseased. A bird inside rotting flesh must carry every sickness it touches. Watch what she does next. That accusation writes itself. Hundreds spiral down from the heat-shimmer sky, wings flat, converging on one carcass. This is the image that built her reputation, the image myths were made from. What you feel watching this is exactly what her accusers have always felt. The case against her is a strong one. Start with the omen. She smells death before it arrives. Not sorcery, optics. Her eyes spot a cat-sized carcass from 3 kilometers up, soaring at speed. She is not predicting. She is the only animal on this plain that sees the truth first. What looks like prophecy is biology. Millions of years of finding the dead fast. The circling has an explanation too. From 3,000 feet, she scans savanna larger than most national parks. No wing beat, just hot air. She is not waiting for death. She runs the most efficient search pattern on this continent. Second charge, filthy, diseased. Down at the mud, the real disease vectors are already at work. None of them are her. A blowfly lands within the hour. One fly's offspring could overwhelm this carcass in a day. A carrion beetle tunnels under the skin. A tumbu fly waits on damp debris. Every hour in the sun, anthrax and botulism bacteria multiply. A clock counting toward outbreak. This is what disease actually looks like, not the vulture. Look again at her bald head. the feature her accusers call proof of filth. Feathers on that head would mat with blood and breed the bacteria she exists to destroy. Bald skin cleans itself with sun and wind, not neglect. Sterile design. Inside that skull, the organ that matters is not the eyes, it is the stomach. Stomach acid at pH 1, strong enough to dissolve bone. Kill anthrax, botulism, rabies on contact. Pathogens that kill other scavengers die the moment she swallows them. What looks like a feeding frenzy is a sterilization event. The evidence does not support the accusation. It inverts it. One charge left. Nothing to do with hygiene. Everything to do with respect. They call her a coward, a bird that waits for something else to kill. The oldest insult. Scavenging is lesser than killing. Driver ants strip what they can reach to sinew in hours. Even they cannot reach what lies beneath a wildebeest's hide. That job needs a beak like a chisel, a stomach like a furnace. The court will hear how efficient a hunter she actually is. Every organism racing to break down these carcasses works against a clock only she can stop. The first vulture lands running, wings spread, feet stumbling at full sprint. 90 seconds, a dozen more, 5 minutes, hundreds.
Not chaos. The fastest waste disposal system on the African continent. The charge of filth ends here, permanently. What she carries does not spread sickness, it ends it on contact. She is not the disease. She stops it before it starts. Now the charge of cowardice. Researchers found vultures consume more meat here than every lion, leopard, cheetah, and hyena combined. Not occasionally. Consistently. More than every predator people call brave. She does this on thermals that cost nothing, scanning ground no cat could cover on foot. If efficiency is skill, she is the savannah's most accomplished hunter. A second species arrives, taller, paler, the Ruppel's vulture. One tagged female flew 200 kilometers today, chasing scent on thermals from rainless ground. She has a chick waiting. Alone in a cliff nest she left before dawn. A third arrives late, the marabou stork. Taller than every vulture here, a worse reputation. 3 species on this riverbank. They divide the labor. Vultures open the carcass, storks clean what falls, ants finish the rest. A spotted hyena arrives from a kilometer away, finds almost nothing worth stealing. A lion farther off does not bother to come. A hierarchy at this carcass. The biggest predators are not at the top. Vultures decide who eats. The hyena waits its turn. Before dark, every vulture returns to a cliff colony or acacia crown. Monogamous pairs. One egg a year. Not two, not a clutch, one. Both parents incubate. Both make flights like this one for months to keep one chick alive. The slowest reproductive strategy on this continent. Every adult in this sky is almost irreplaceable. The defense rests. The evidence never supported the accusation. What nobody films is what happens after the feeding stops. By afternoon, the field that held dozens of carcasses holds almost nothing. A carcass lions need days to consume. This colony reduces it to bone in 30 minutes. Every carcass on this riverbank, cleaned before the sun reaches its highest point. The tagged rupels lifts off, gorged, a fifth heavier, climbing back onto the thermals. 200 kilometers home. Carried by hot air, she reads better than any pilot. She will regurgitate food directly into the mouth of one chick, waiting where she left it. 20 years, one chick at a time. That is how slowly this species rebuilds. The tenderness myths never mention. She spends her life feeding one defenseless chick. This is the moment her case takes its darkest turn. The reputation that makes people fear her is now a market. Across West and Southern Africa, vulture heads and brains are traded for foresight and luck. Poison one carcass, kill dozens from one colony in an afternoon. The irony is precise. Killing her for the power to predict the future. Her disappearance already predicts an outbreak. 7 vulture species across Africa are now critically endangered, same as the rarest large mammals. Not because they failed to adapt, because the myth that feared them is erasing them. one country where this already happened in full. In the 90s, Indian farmers treated cattle with a drug called diclofenac. It worked on cattle. It killed vultures. Kidney failure within days. 3 gyps species collapsed by 95% before anyone understood. Not endangered, gone. From skies where they were the most numerous bird of prey on Earth. Carcasses that vanished in an hour started sitting in fields and villages for days. Feral dogs exploded. More strays where meat rots. More bites. India had one of the highest rabies rates on Earth. This bird's collapse made it worse. Researchers linked her disappearance to 100,000 extra deaths a year, tens of billions in cost. Ugly, unnecessary, a bad omen. She was a public health system nobody priced until it failed. Return to the image that opened this film. Blood on a bald skull. Eyes that do not blink. Every culture that feared her said this was the face of death. It is the face of the only reason death does not spread further. She did not circle above that riverbank because something was about to die. Something already had. She was the only one fast enough and sterile enough to stop what came next. The world had this animal backward from the start. She is not the omen. She is the intervention.
Tonight, this riverbank will be quiet. Clean. Safer than if the sky had stayed empty. Nobody along this river will know how close they came to an outbreak that never happened. Nobody will thank the bird responsible. But the case is closed. The verdict is vindication. The verdict on this bird is in. But she is not the only one on trial. Beside her stands another defendant, taller, uglier, a worse reputation. Her case is closed. His is next.